All right, so this is going to be a video all about Python variables and Python assignments. And those assignments would just be you're assigning values to those variables. Okay, first thing that's important to understand is that a variable is just an abstraction that can hold a value. Okay, so it's similar to math where, you know, x is equal to 2, so now you can use x wherever you want, and x is going to be equal to 2 because you assigned it to that 2 value. The assignment operator for Python is just an equal sign. Okay, so if you see an equal sign, that is basically what's going to be assigning a variable a certain value. So if I had something like x equals 3, and then I do print x, okay, and then I run this, it is going to print 3 to the screen right here, as you can see. Okay, important thing to understand with the assignment operator, if I reassign it something else, like say I reassign it CSP here, it'll print out the newest value. So x is 3, and then x is going to be this string of characters, this CSP. So it should print out CSP over here. That x equals 3 basically isn't really needed for this. Okay, next thing I want to talk about is variable naming. It is really important to understand that when you name variables, it makes more sense if they're actually named according to what they're actually doing. Now, this first example here where it says x equals 3, it's just a very basic example. That's why I used x. But if I was running a program and that x actually represented something like the length of a rectangle or the height of a rectangle, something like that, you're going to want to actually label it accordingly. You're going to name it accordingly with the variable naming. Again, this is just an example, so I didn't bother doing that. Okay, next thing I want to talk about is numeric types. The main numeric types that we're going to be talking about in this class are integers, or ints, and floats, which are just decimal numbers. With floats, it just basically means that it's a floating point decimal, which means there's a decimal in it. Ints is an integer, which is basically any negative or positive value, and 0. Okay, if you have, let's just say integer, and we're going to call this integer, we're going to give it a value of 31. Okay, what you can do is you can actually print the type of integer, that integer variable we have, and it'll actually output to the screen what the int is. You see, it says right here, class is int. Okay, it's still printed off the CSP from before up here as well. That's what the CSP is, and then the class is int. Okay, a floating number, I'm going to call this one because float's an actual keyword in Python. But if I did a float of equal to 31, and then I did print type floating number, it outputs an int. Now the reason for that is because I don't actually have a decimal in this. So what I'm going to do is I can just put a decimal here, and believe it or not, that actually turns it into a float. And you can see right here, class is float. Now you could put a number here too, so if I did like 31.54 or something like that and run it, it would print out the type. Okay, this type keyword just prints out the type to the screen. If you actually wanted to print out the value, you would just, you know, print integer, prints a floating number, and then it outputs it right here. So 31 and then 31.54. So that's basically just an introduction to variables and assignments in Python. If you have any questions about anything in this video, let me know.